Hello and welcome to another episode of the CG Garage. This is episode number 383, featuring the amazing, the wonderful, the kindest person in the world. He's really silly. He's super, super kind, never without a smile. His name is Marc Morissette, and he is the owner, director, and visual effects supervisor over at Cluster, which is really great. I met Marc back in the day over at DD. It's a lot of people on this podcast have sort of come through those doors, but it was really great to catch up with Marc and find out what it's like to start your own business and the pains and the challenges and the rewards you get in doing that. So it's really awesome to talk to him and find out what's going on. Kristen, what did you think of Marc?
Yeah, so we just get to hear how he started off in the industry. He actually started studying aircraft manufacturing, and then he worked on this software and realized he did love animation and modeling and found out you could get paid to do that. So then he went off, and he's done everything from like lighting artist, flame, digital compositor, VFX soup, and now owner of his own company with his brothers. So that's kind of fun to hear about. And then he's also just in the past worked on like iRobot, Transformers, Speed Racer, and then Lost in Space TV series. And those are just a few, like his IMDb is huge. But yeah, he's been super busy. And we also get to hear how he's adapted during the pandemic with his company. They almost thought maybe they would go under, but kind of kept persevering. So that's just an interesting story. And then of course at the end you guys touch on like Unreal, virtual production, real-time technology, and just how this will like increase the speed of the post-production process. So get a lot in this podcast. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Marc, as I said, is a really amazing person, a great kind person. It's really interesting to see that he is from Quebec. He lives in Montreal, and it's just really kind of cool to see what's going on over there as well, because I've actually wanted to go back to Montreal and visit. So it'd be great to see if I can catch up with Marc one day when I go back up there. Anyway, we've got a couple of big announcements. The first one I want to say, it's officially out. As of last week, all this information is available on chaos.com, but V-Ray 6 for 3ds Max is out, and it has a ton of new features, including a new procedural cloud system for our skies, geometric pattern tools, new scatter tools. You can do decals on with displacements. There's a new hierarchy system for the proxies, and there's a lot of new stuff. So go check it out. Go to chaos.com and check out everything that's new in V-Ray 6 for 3ds Max. And before you start asking when is it going to be available for SketchUp or Rhino or Maya or whatever, all of that is coming. And first they'll be released as a public beta, and then our private beta. Usually we have a couple of people trying our private beta, and then it goes to a public beta, which if you have a license, you're free to try the beta. And then obviously it becomes a release project. So just go to chaos.com and check it out, and stay in touch with all of us to find out when the next V-Ray 6 release will be coming. Okay, we've got a couple of events. Kristen, what's going on?
Yeah, so you can find these out at chaos.com/events. The first one will be, I think it'll actually be this week, July 15th. And Chaos will be hosting a special live stream on Bilibili, I can't say that word for some reason, to learn what's new in V-Ray 6 for 3ds Max and how to apply it to your workflow. And then on July 28th, we will have a free webinar, and this will be about creating detailed exteriors in no time with V-Ray 6, so you can explore the unexplored with the new features in V-Ray 6. So again, chaos.com/events to find more about these events.
That's right. Okay. So again, those dates are going to be July 15th and July 28th. If you're interested in any of those, just go to chaos.com/events. Okay. If people would like to know more about the podcast, Kristen, where can they go?
You can go to facebook.com/chaos. oh my gosh, facebook.com/CG Garage Podcast or chaos.com/CG Garage. And if you'd like to watch us, go to youtube.com/Chaos Group TV.
Perfect. And if you guys have ideas of podcasts or you have comments on this one or anything else, just email us, labs@chaos.com. What's going on, Kristen? You've said it like 300 times in the past.
I know.
How did you miss it this time?
It looked different.
It looked different. Okay, cool. And of course, if you guys want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, that's always appreciated. And don't forget to give us a rating. And of course, share us with all of your friends and family. But for now, please enjoy episode number 383 with Marc Morissette.
Welcome to another CG garage where the chaos group talks. You'll know it's over when the last bucket drops. We're gonna fire off rays in high dynamic range. We know that ambient occlusion is passe. Global illumination won't lead you astray. And while image-based lighting is really swell, you need to make sure everything has Fresnel.
How you been, man? What's going on?
Oh my
things?
God. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you busy?
So, extremely.
Extremely busy.
Oh yeah. I'm now, my small team is now up to 7 full time, and we're 10 with some devs that are writing tools for us. So it's growing slowly, my company.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So we want to definitely get to your company and figure out how that all started. But I think what would be good to start with is to let people know, like, what sort of got you into the industry? Like, what was the thing
Sure.
that got you into the movie industry? Like, what inspired you?
Well, actually, are we starting yet?
Yeah, we already started.
Okay. Sorry, I apologize. So yeah, so basically I was studying aircraft manufacturing,
Really?
and yeah, I got a degree in that. So basically, while I was doing that, it was a 3-year program, and I discovered like AutoCAD, and so I purchased my first computer, and basically the computer came with softwares.
Uh-huh.
So, and that included the 3D Studio version 2, I think, back in the day. So I basically
In
got
DOS.
in DOS, yeah.
Right. Yep.
So I basically started, that was back in 94? No.
93 or
Yeah.
94.
Yeah.
Yeah. Version
Yeah,
2 was about
exactly.
93. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically I started playing with that, and instead of doing my actual homework, I started doing animation and stuff, and building, like modeling. I got a 3D Studio Bible, and just going through and discovering what could be done with that. So that was pretty interesting. But at one point I was halfway through my aircraft manufacturing course, and basically decided to just, oh my God, I want to do the other stuff. And I actually saw a television interview from one of Montreal's artists, Marjolaine Tremblay.
Mhm.
And basically she was an animator on Jumanji, and watching the actual television interview, I was like, wait a minute, there's people paid to actually do what I do like on my spare time. So I basically went, oh, I want to do that. So basically the other half of my course was finishing the course.
Yep.
And basically trying to see how I could get into that particular field. So I did multiple things, but I ended up anyways applying to the NAD Center, which is the National Animation and Design Center in Montreal, where basically it was the first soft image school. So that was the first original training centers. So I did that particular course, and I did that. It was an 8 months intensive, because there was no actual bachelor's beside maybe a Savannah or other ones. So there weren't that many courses available during those years. So I basically finished an ad in, I think, 98 or 99. And from there, got my first gig as a lighting artist on a television show. And from there,
Montreal?
In Montreal, it was a show called Excalibur, which was, full CG, but for the time it was actually pretty avant-garde for the time. And I went from there, but my main focus was really compositing. I wanted to really focus on compositing, but having that lighting background, I think it helped me throughout those years as an artist in general. So.
Oh yeah, especially because lighters. If you have a lighter and you know how to communicate with lighters better.
Which I use really well throughout the years.
Yep, for sure. for sure.
Yeah. So from there, I did a few companies in Montreal, and then I also went to Massachusetts to work at the time it was called Kaiser Wozak.
Mm-hmm.
So I did work on a motion ride for them, which I was a lighter on Maya, because that particular show I was mentioning was on Maya. So I went from learning Softimage to relearning Maya, and then moving on towards that again as a lighting artist. And so I basically did a few back and forth between Montreal and Massachusetts, then came back, then left for
That's
for
where you met
Australia.
Pat Finlay, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I
Right.
met Pat, Mike Comley, and all those guys. So it
Yeah.
was a pretty fun time. We would do work during the day, snowboard, and drink during the night, and start over the next day.
Right.
I'm saying that it wasn't that bad, but no, it was great. And the friendship we formed back then was pretty fun.
Right.
And so then I went to Australia to do a gig on Ghost Ship at Photon VFX at one point. Came back to Montreal, sent out resumes, and to my usual every 6 months ILM digital domain and whatnot. And at one point, digital domain, after sending my reel 3 months back, they called me, and I packed my stuff, and with my girlfriend at the time, we just packed everything in a van that I just bought, and we just rolled through the States from Montreal to LA. And
Wow.
that's where I met all of you guys at Digital Domain, and from there it was
Yeah.
a
So
fun
I guess
5 years.
your first show was was Day After Tomorrow. Were you on Day or no?
No, I was on Peter Pan.
You were on Peter Pan.
First show
That's
was
right.
Peter Pan. Yeah. So basically, it was one day and a half of here's Nuke, and yes,
Yep.
you deliver shots by Friday, and I was like, oh my god. so that was fun times, but it was great. Actually, those years were really. I think it was one of the best time. I think the crew at the time, and I think AF being like the old guard and new people coming in. I think after like 2 to 3 years, it really formed something that. I think everybody pings each other once in a while, either on social
Yeah.
media or whatever. So it was really fun meeting you, and
Yep.
it was a great time.
It's interesting. I mean, I just had a conversation with Adam Sidwell. Do you remember Adam Sidwell?
By name,
He was a TD. He was a character TD on iRobot, and he did a bunch of
Okay,
stuff.
okay.
You're right.
Yeah,
And so
yep.
he was one of those. Remember, there was a bunch of guys that came from Utah. There was a bunch from that came. Anyway, Adam has also started his own company.
Oh,
So
what's
there's
the name?
Play something studios. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm feeling bad,
No,
but
it's
but
all
it's
good. I'm putting yourself on the spot.
yeah, I know. He's doing well. He's in Utah, and it's so great to see all these people that knew it back then that have become entrepreneurs and sort of grown into all our different things. So
It's
it
great.
was really cool.
I just saw like Thomas Rippen's Storm VFX back in
Yep.
Norway. Man, the stuff. It's kind of funny because you kind of feel the people behind the company. You know what I mean? Like the type
Yep.
of work they're getting and all whatnot. It's fun, and it's funny to be surrounded by people that are ended up at Netflix, Marvel, and whatnot. So it's a great. I feel like it's the university time that I never really had. Like everybody, like the class of whatever 2003, and everybody's like split off and are now in different spheres. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so many amazing people grew to such incredible positions. I just saw that Julian Levy, I don't know if you remember him.
of course.
He's now like a vice president of VFX at Columbia, something like that.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
Columbia
yeah.
Paramount. I don't remember, but it's
Or
like oh my
Paramount.
God.
Paramount.
Paramount,
Yeah, no,
right?
I know. And you take like Jeff Bauman, Brian Grill.
Yep.
All these guys are all, and so even some people that just were on and off at DD that turned out like they started the company, didn't work.
Look at Victoria Alonso. She was a DD producer.
I know.
Way back in the day.
I know, and that it's crazy. Like all that person, Jen, also she's at Marvel, and all these people is just it was a really fun time to be all together. I remember at one point we were really having a blast working on all those shows.
Oh yeah, for sure. So what was your last show at DD?
It was a Speed Racer.
Speed. Okay. Oh, so you were there a while.
Yeah, I was. I think overall 5 years. Like basically, I was there enough to see the DD 2.0 happen. You know, I was there before, and then the Michael Bay and the venture buying Digital Domain.
Right.
Us getting new chairs. I don't know why, but that was really funny. They just came in with like a full bunch of new chairs, and you know, ours were getting apart. But no, it was crazy time, and it was actually good to actually like with Scott Ross and all these people. I would love to have you know, a time machine and go back, because being an entrepreneur now, it just, looking back, it's such a different perspective on a lot of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's interesting, you know, when you were just when you and I were just, you know, artists over there, and we're seeing all this crazy stuff happening around us, and we're like, this is crazy. And it's like,
oh my God,
those decisions are made for reasons.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And the pressure that they had to deal with, you know, to make that happen. So
yeah, and being, you know, a partner with somebody, like I know I've been there, like at the beginning, like having a partner, you need to weigh all decisions and the company direction. So being in a situation where everybody's like stuck in terms of decision making, it must not be fun.
Must not be fun. No.
Nope.
I did a recording with Jeff Stringer. You remember Jeff Stringer over at the
Yep.
And Jeff was, you know, he had to make such tough decisions every day with artists, and he just, you know, probably end up looking like the bad guy, but those are things that he had to deal with all the time. So
and again, where the time travel comes in, like having perspective back. It's wow, these guys were amazing. Like you were talking about Julian Levy. I still remember as one of the good producer that was there, and you know,
he was
my
really
favorite.
Good.
Yeah, my favorite moment with him is being in dailies. We were like the entire crew, and people were fiddling about the few pixels, and he turned around. Well, this shot has been approved, so get everybody out because it's costing me money. And that was the first time I heard like money at one point being mentioned, which it is money. Being an entrepreneur now, it's wow. Yeah. Like the amount of money, having like 100 people sit there and just watch, I would, yep. I think we're good.
I remember at one point, this is before I was in visual effects. I was working at Gensler, at the architecture firm. And this is years and years and years ago, obviously. But the way Gensler was organized is they had studios within the larger company. So they made little pods. So one of our studios, and each studio had its own vice president that would run that, and they would each work on projects. And so our studio probably had about 30 or 40 people or something like that. So our vice president was her birthday. And so the secretary was like, oh, let's all get to the conference room and surprise her for her birthday. Well, she was running late. So we're sitting there in a conference room for like 20 minutes waiting for her to arrive, and someone's like, let's calculate the billable hours.
Exactly.
People sitting at their desks, you know, not working for 20 minutes, 40 people. That's a lot of waiting.
Oh yeah, and at one point you're like, you blame it on the cake, like everybody take that $50 cake piece, here you go. Exactly. That's much how it costs.
Yeah,
that's good.
It's good. Okay, so you were there up until Speed Racer. I'm assuming you worked on Speed Racer the whole time. That was a tough show. Oh,
it was a tough show. No, I did. I think I went after the trailer. We decided, me and my wife at the time, we decided to move back to Montreal because we just had my daughter, and she was 6, 7. So we decided to go back and give a little bit of action to the grandparents back in Montreal. So that was the call, and from that point on, I had passed an interview at Digital Dimension, which they were in
Yeah.
West Hollywood at one point, and
Yeah.
basically I was in charge of taking on the movie The Spirit as a compositing supervisor. My first role as a compositing supervisor in Montreal. So I ended up with the crew, which I trained and formed, and we basically delivered like 370 something shots of The Spirit, all green
Wow.
screen with CG and stuff. So it was a good time. And from there, I moved from company to company in Montreal. Yeah.
Right. Well, Montreal has grown quite a bit in the visual effects world over the last several years, right?
Yes, there's a lot of movement, if I might say, in Montreal. I actually the last place I did when I decided to start my own business was me not being in full accord in terms of how the management of projects were being made, like in
Okay.
terms of like man hours, like crazy hours. I mean, and I had a small daughter, recently divorced, so I was like, well, I need to leave at 5. So that
Right.
call you guys made about doing 40 shots overnight for the client the next day, I need to get my daughter from school, so I'm out. You know, it's so since I was, one of the older, I still feel like I'm the newbie at Digital Domain. Just so you know, I haven't
Yeah, me
changed,
too.
but it's crazy every time I see like Brian Grill or Lou Pecora or
Right.
whatever. It's just I feel like I'm the new guy on the block, and Rob Niederhorst, that's another good character that was there at Digital Domain. So basically, I decided to, because I had tried it in several places. Like I went back and from studios. Sometimes I went back, and every time it was either fixing the same thing and not feeling like I wanted to try it by myself to see, okay, why are we doing it this way? And I've been really, really hard of trying to find with my company, like, how do you change the way we do stuff in visual effects? And that's the whole point of me starting the company. The fact that my daughter's Montreal, I can't just fly around like I used to. That's another big point. But so basically, how do you try to do things differently in the industry, which is it's a very hard field to be in. It's not like selling items or coffee or food, which a per plate cost. Like ours is a little bit more. Well, can you change it to blue? Oh no, never mind, red. And then so that's a interesting way to a business and hourly feature on how to charge creativity basically. So I have a lot of gained respect for any people that started a visual effects company in their lives.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it seems almost counterintuitive that you wanted to manage your hours better, so you start your own company, which is harder to manage your hours, isn't it?
It is, and I'm actually and thanks again for having this a little bit sooner, because I'm leaving on Monday on vacation, and after working a very, very busy year, because we've been growing from me and my two brothers to now we're almost 10, so that's a lot of growth in a short amount of time. So we're living with that, and but it's a fun ride. We're having a blast. We're laughing almost on a daily basis. So it's the environment I'm trying to create is it's pretty fun so far.
All right. Well, okay. So now we've established why you started your own company, but let's give it a little
Yep.
bit insight onto it. Tell me about, well, first of all, tell people the name of your company and what kind of stuff do you guys do?
So my company is called Cluster. So it's cluster.tv, the website, where the website is still under construction. It's just a basic page to get us going, because we've been so busy. But so I started that back in 2015.
Okay.
And it's actually interesting, because the reason why I started the company was trying to get out of visual effects.
Right.
I wanted, well, not entirely, but it was to try to create a all-in-one. So basically, from shoot to finish. I wanted to get more into directing, and basically at one point, like being in Montreal, the market is really it was saturated back in the day. Now it's still saturated. It's all the same players just moving around. But the goal was really to get from shoot to finish, and I did that as a proof of concept, which was a commercial I did called Leva. It was for a private charter plane company. So I basically did the scenario and created the entire commercial in-house with Nuke and lighting. Back then it was Modo. I can't remember if I used V-Ray on it, but it was just all us that did from start to finish. So, and it was just for me to see the gain of how much do you save by doing it all internally. Because we come from a day where I keep reflecting on that recently, where a show would be handled by one studio. Like we started to see the split when, let's say, the Golden Compass. Well, it was my first time seeing a show split between two studios from Rhythm and News and us. Back in the day, that was like doing a show split, because before it was all ILM or all us, and you can kind of feel the signature of a studio. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Like just. You could feel like, oh, okay, that's Digital Domain did this one, or ILM did this one, and suddenly a migration of FX artists from Digital Domain onto Asylum. That really shocked me, because then Master and Commander had amazing water, but before it was a trait mostly attributed to Digital Domain. Right. So at one point, that would really mark me, because you see that it's really the individuals that are really a big key factor in getting shows out, and I think we're not totally losing that, but since there's a lot of movement, because there's a lot of company, like I don't feel like there's a team building like back in the day, like. It was almost like a privilege to work at Digital Domain or ILM or Sony at the time. It was really like, oh, wow, you made it, especially coming from either out of state or out of country. So it was a long road to get there. Now, since all the companies are really all established all over the world, which is awesome. It's giving work. It's giving like increase in terms of technical knowledge. But I think I feel that there's too much movement for my taste, because that's what I'm trying to build with Cluster, is actually finding people that we're going to try to slowly build that company culture and get a team up to like 2-3 years of working together. And we're going to feel like, hey, we've been working together, and that's the resulting company reel will be the work of those individuals who have been there for a while,
Yeah. Yeah, so you think that there's currently a lot of people just moving from one company to the next constantly all over the place, right?
Yeah, and also what's really I think dangerous in terms of it's a artist market. I love the fact that it's great for artists, but the issue is that a person will move and get salary augmentation, but the skill set is not following. What I mean? Like I even after 23, 24 years of being in the industry, I still feel like a junior, because I'm still learning. I'm still, I did a full project using V-Ray by myself. I had my small render farm installed, and it was my first time doing GPU. I think I reached out at one point to
I think you did.
Yeah. And basically I was like, oh my God, okay, I had V-Ray running on Modo, and then I transitioned back to Maya, and because the release were faster, the 3D Studio would get the first, betas, and then so I decided to go back to Maya and use the cloud rendering, the physical here rendering, depending on the project. But I'm still learning, and now I've been venturing into Unreal. So it's all like all these little pieces all together that I feel like I'm still a student of our industry. Yeah.
Same here. I'm always, the thing that trying to do is I'm trying to invent new things. Like, what if we did this? And then I was like, I don't even know how to do that. Well, that's the thing. I think that's the thing that's nice about visual effects is that, by definition, everything we do is supposed to look like something you've never seen before. So it means you have to invent everything you're doing, right?
Constantly, and it's exciting and it's exhausting at the same time. I feel like because, like, oh right, I mastered this. What do you mean? There's another software that, oh damn, right. and you go, and it's all about time and speed and whatever the artists are comfortable using, because that's why right now I've hired professional Python scripting guys and people looking at my server and my security and stuff and revising everything, but I'm paying for them because it'll take me 2-3 years to get to that point, and in a lot of cases they do that in 15 minutes. So it's
right.
It's a pretty interesting expertise as its value.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of work out there right now as well, obviously, right? Because there's so many things going on. So how when you start a company like you did, how do you find your first customers? How do you find your first, how did that
Actually, it was kind of weird because the first 3 years of having the company, I had a partner, then he left, I had to rebuy his share, and basically we were testing out the commercial scene here, because that's the format we wanted to do, short format with some visual effects if needed, but it was never a question of forcing the client to have visual effects in their work. It's mostly where can you save costs and actually get the product that you're looking for. Mm-hmm. So we did that a few times. Then I did a little bit of freelance when it was really slow through my company and certain visual effects company in Montreal. I did some commercial work for them, as a standalone guy doing stuff. So that's how it really started. Then some editorial, some shooting, some drone. So we ventured a few. Then at one point, I saw that the market was really slow-ish. So and we had tested a few VR project. So I ended up in a VR startup, which they hired me as a consultant to get those visual effects. It was for that Tom Cruise VR Mummy Return 0G scene. Right. And basically at one point, what was fun about the project is that at one point they asked me if there was a way to do the Universal logo in a very short amount of time for a very small budget. And basically, I was responsible of doing the entire rendering and compositing for that Universal logo opening for that VR piece, which was intense. I don't remember sleeping in 6 days, but
right.
And I was about to have my second child at the time, so it was intense. And
right.
So that's how it evolved. And then it's just kind of contacting people once in a while for small sequences and stuff, and had conversation with presidents of larger companies at one point, and they kind of oh, we love what you do. They kind of put me in touch with their production team. Nothing really came out of it. One project came out of it, but the time frame and the location was an issue at the time. But yeah, slowly building towards that. We got small independent films, which we're doing a nice little project, Western right now. Can't say the name, but so we're doing a small project. But since last year, we really grown with very. We're really thankful for those clients that really relaunched Cluster into where it is right now, and some new clients came in because we did work. For a television series, local show, doing face rajeunissement. Help me.
Rejuvenation or
yeah. There you go. So basically, that was a 2.5D / we use a few techniques. We've been starting to use AI a lot here at Cluster, so that's a very interesting field. yeah. So we're really touching. Like that's why it took a while, like to get where we're at. But we've been, on all those series that we got, like just my brother, which is not, he's our VFX producer. Basically, was doing a shot count since last September, and for our small VFX boutique, mind you, it's not Marvel type shots, but we did 700 plus shots since September. So it's on multiple like shows. And,
That's awesome.
We're kind of, and now, because we've been waiting for Python 3 to be really established in all of our current software, and now we're building a pipeline from scratch using Python 3. So that means we're using the latest Nuke, the latest F-Track, the latest Unreal. So everything's like really rebuilding now from scratch into a 2022 pipeline, which I kind of like,
right?
Because it's really limiting being in a larger studio, because you have so many tools and everything's all integrate together as a fully working system. So changing a software version can be sometimes daunting. I don't know if you remember that from our DD days, but we would get like, people like over the intercom, stop using the latest version of Nuke, roll back, please. So, that was pretty fun. Or Races Down, that was one of my favorite.
Yeah,
the rendering software, that was awesome.
Rob Niederhorst was the worst about that. So I worked with Rob Niederhorst at one of a small company that was started called SpeedShape. I don't know if you remember SpeedShape.
Yeah, I remember.
But he had set it up, because it was Rob, to every night he set up a script that would download the latest nightlies of V-Ray, not even beta, just the nightlies, install it on every computer.
That is crazy.
It's so dangerous.
It is in certain ways, but I'm a bit like that. Like I'm holding the versions to the latest, the version we started in, but then we move on to the next, because in a lot of cases, the gain you're getting from either new tools or whatever is quite significant in terms of artist time. Yeah. Because I do count artist time now.
Yeah.
And the price of sitting somebody at a desk is also a very conscious decision. To add somebody at the studio is quite expensive. At one point, I think, and I also did a little bit of teaching at the school I mentioned earlier, the NAT Center.
Oh, okay.
And it was a small upgrade courses or whatever. But one thing I would do is sit down and actually talk about work ethics, because a lot of young people would come out of school and they're like, "Oh my God, this is great." Versus me back at Digital Domain, I was like, Chris Nichols, IMDb. God, you worked on that, or I remember Jonathan Ekstad or Kelly Port, and you're like Googling, and I'm like, I remember like the first few months, I was like, oh my God, I'm working next to these guys. It was for me. I was a fan of everybody I worked with. That every company I've worked at, I was fan of. People that had more experience than me. And
Well, did you see the Oscar nominations this year? It was all those guys.
I know. and you're like, I wish you all.
Yeah. Brian Grill, Kelly Port,
and,
Paul
Lambert. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're all those guys. And they were all there. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, it was funny. I was at the VES earlier this year, and they were all there at the party, right?
Oh my!
I saw Brian Grill, and of course Brian, he's like a big teddy bear. He comes over and gives you this huge hug, right? And I said, and I want to say congratulations on being nominated for an Oscar, but instead I said congratulations on winning the Oscar, and he yelled, and he looked at Kelly Port, who was right there. He said, "You see, Chris said I won." And I was like, "Oh, sorry." Kelly was like, "What are you talking about?" It was pretty funny.
That was fun. I actually met with Jonathan Ekstad and Jessica Harris and Brian Grill at Vancouver back in 4 years ago. Actually 4
Okay.
days. My God.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a funny story. I actually, from that SIGGRAPH trip, I actually was at the airport looking at Facebook, and I'm like, I was looking for a space for my company because I needed, with the newborn, I needed to get out of the house.
Right.
And so basically, I was looking for a space, and I saw on Facebook, oh, there's a studio for sale with the green screen and stuff. And I'm like, and I just finished SIGGRAPH, and I saw like the Unreal Engine going with Epic Games and ILM, and I was like, oh my God, this is the first time I'm looking at something that it might happen. Finally, the switch that people have been talking for the last 25 years,
Right.
that the games are going to actually get up to par. And so I saw that little green screen studio. I said, hey, let's go visit. I made an offer and took back the green screen studio equipment. And basically now I'm all set up with all the way to DI, so I can actually shoot. I have my small mocap, like camera studio on the other side. Of course, it's the basic, but
Right.
I'm by myself, and now
Right.
with a team, and we're going to slowly grow towards that, and we'll see what happens next.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So how did the pandemic affect you when you were doing stuff? Like for the 2 years, obviously, it must have been. Was it different? Like how did that work for you guys?
So basically, 2019, I managed to get a Netflix project, which was
Oh, nice.
great. It was me with my brother doing like 30 something shot of snow cleaning up for Spencer Confidential with Mark Wahlberg. So we
Mm-hmm.
did small shots like this, and with after meeting somebody from Netflix that was doing the tour in Montreal, I had written to them a little bit before, and basically they showed up and, hey, put us in touch, and we started that. So 2019, with the newborn and everything, it was my third child, sorry, and he was just born. So that production was really intense, especially for sleeping hours as a new dad.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, we finished 2019. Then we got another project going from a studio that I won't mention, but it was great collaboration. And so I finished 2019. I'm burnt because new dad and everything. We go on vacations to France to rest. That's where I'm actually going on Monday, in
Mm-hmm.
my spouse family. And I'm thought to myself, great, 2019 people, it's done. And we didn't have that many clients, but I thought to myself, oh, that's great. I'll touch back with Netflix or and other clients coming back from the new year. It's gonna be great.
Mm-hmm.
Come back 2020. Usually January is really slow in terms of commercial work and everything. And basically pandemic hit. So we had like a few shoots because I did rental in my studio. So that kind of kept me alive, and government aid helped us a lot. But the problem with that is that there was no real time frame of when you get back. So
Mm-hmm.
originally it was like, the first few months, it was like, oh, by June, everything is gonna be fine. But then getting close to June, you're like, it's not going. So you're like, you know what, September, and then So basically, during that summer, I've adjusted so that we could do broadcasts of what was being shot with a minimal crew, so that people outside the studio could actually watch what was going on and whatnot. And I did also like CG work using V-Ray for like product stuff. So that was pretty cool. Like some of my clients. So, but then like in retrospective, all these little contracts, like, yes, kept me alive, but it was really hard because everything stopped, all the shooting stopped. So by the time everything got back up, I was like, oh my God, this is probably me shutting down. But something told me, like, keep at it just a little bit longer, keep at it just a bit. After hearing that every day, and basically since last year, because it's like what happened, especially in Montreal and everywhere in the world, usually the studios have like one project and the other, or two projects in the studio shooting, but it's only that kind of like one, two, and then the two next, or one next, and then and
Mm-hmm.
like this. But what happened with the pandemic is a slingshot effect. Everybody was at the door because during those 2 years, people managed to actually got their project greenlit. So all the studio capacities were full and people at the door knocking. So basically the post-production work kind of like went from the larger studios to the mid-sized studios, and then it basically all the smaller independent films are now and series are going through us. And the relationship where we built with our clients is really good, and the way we work, we really found new ways to optimize our work process to be competitive and affordable to our clients. So that was a big piece of the puzzle. Now we're working on adding more artists.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting. You're right, because it's not just that all this work is happening. Is streaming became super popular during the pandemic because people were stuck at home.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and now there's so much demand for filling up the streaming networks,
And not only that, and that's something I was observing, and that's why I kind of started Cluster back in the day, because you were looking at the graphic of the investments of the big studios, and I was like, there's no way that one's like all the studio in place will absorb the work. And even if they could, the quality keeps getting higher and higher and higher, so that at one point something had to trickle down to smaller studios, and that's what we're seeing happening, is that smaller studios are getting smaller shows. But for us, we're as long as I'm having fun and that the people that work with me are having fun, for me it's the base requisite for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's really, really, really interesting, and it's great. I'm glad you're doing that. And I'm also glad you're sort of supporting some of those smaller projects, those independent projects, right?
Oh,
those
yeah.
people that need that work, and they have places to that can help them. And I know your work is excellent, so that's great. That's great.
Thanks.
Okay, I am curious a little. So you've obviously started, you're talking about modernizing your studio and getting all your software up to date and doing things, and you're starting to look at things in Unreal, for example. What is your thoughts? What are your thoughts about using game engines and where that's going at this point?
Actually, especially since I'm doing all the R&D work, and now I have other interests that are going to help me get it. It's a lot more complicated to do, because what I'm trying to build is to have the ability to shoot cameras and shoot live action also at the same time, because I think just the research of doing that will be enough for us to actually pinpoint other issues or get into a R&D place where most people, because out of the box it's great. Like I remember playing with some ready asset, and I did this X-Wing shot from scratch. Like, of course, I had all the models asset, access to a Quixel Megascan, but building a shot in 4 hours with lighting and animating and adding sound to my little piece was like, 4 hours. But the thing is, like, I haven't gone to a quality level yet to see where it breaks. But then Unreal Engine 5 came in, and they're like, okay, and I've been using a lot of V-Ray for the past 3 years because I have like 8 GPU cards rendering and I've been using Chaos Clouds for commercial work, which it works great because it's the ease of use. Since I didn't have a TD at the time to help me with the rendering or whatever, so that was the smoothest thing you can have. Like, send to cloud, check your layer, what do you want, send, submit, email, ready, download, hey, it's ready. Right. You can't beat that formula. So far, right. It's the smoothest formula in terms of cloud rendering that I found. And I've tried a few. Like, I tried Zinc Render at one point. I tried a few others. That was mainly for Nuke, but so those are all things. But at one point, you need a TD to move the plates, move the scene, move that. So there's something that breaks. So having a all-in-one formula with the Chaos Cloud was great awesome. For me, at least.
That's
so,
cool.
Yeah, and
I've actually been playing. I've been playing a lot with V-Ray for Unreal and seeing how I can make that
I
work.
tried it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically my take was that for 4.27 was to use Unreal Engine to get to 80%, but have the shaders, and that was the complicated part where I kind of stopped because then the VFX work kind of really started to swamp me.
Right.
But it was getting to a point with Unreal and then use the V-Ray engine. I did a few tests, which was great. I was like, hey, you can actually do that afterwards, and which for me was great. So
I'll have to tell you, I can't. I'm not going to put it on the podcast, but I'll tell you after we finish recording some of the cool stuff.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
It'll be fun, but it's cool. So what I mean, so what is your main purpose in looking at Unreal? Are you looking at for like virtual art department? Are you looking at it for virtual production? Are you looking at it for?
Actually, I'm actually looking at it as a quick, because again, like building a scene and seeing the lighting and adjusting everything in real time. And another piece that really sold that to me was the Meerkat demo that the Weta did.
Mm-hmm.
Because I looked at it in YouTube and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's an animation short. Oh, that's great. There's hair, because that was the big, real time hair and stuff. But then they gave the scene for free to download, and I opened that up, and as a lighter, I was like,
Right.
That was really exciting because you could actually play in real time in 4K on my OLED screen that particular short with sound in real time and then make adjustments, which for me, that was really the big, like another extra stuff of like, you know what, let's explore that. But the problem for us at least is that it's a curve, because I'm seeing a lot of Unreal project, they do it, everybody comes together, and then the expertise leave, and then they redo something, they do it, and then it stops. But there's no like really repetitive studios doing, besides the big ones, actually doing at a repetition all that Unreal Engine work and VFX work. But I do want to explore in terms of VFX, because at least for our clients, like the more independent film, it might get them up to a point like 90% there of what they're looking for.
Sure.
So that's why I'm saying it's not really something. It's just how to be cost effective, and also at the same time getting the people I work with trained towards that, and being versatile. Like even if it's just to keep their minds sharp, because if you stop learning and you're used to, well, I use Maya for 20 years and this is the way we've been doing it for the last 20 years. That's the kind of attitude I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to have curious people, no matter what the age. Yeah. So that's really one thing I'm trying to not only like sit down and press these buttons. It's like, you know what, sit down. If you're interested in that, share with the people and grow the team that I miss about DD. I miss that particular moment of like having people work with the same people for 3 years and say, hey, we're doing awesome work,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting. And you're definitely right about, you said it's an artist market before, but if you're an Unreal person, you're like a unicorn right now. It's really, really challenging. One of the other things that someone I was talking to Jonathan Gerber. Remember Jonathan Gerber?
Yes, I actually saw him at SIGGRAPH. Yeah.
Yeah. He was telling me, he's the problem he's dealing with Unreal is the whole versioning system, right? Because you have to use Perforce, etc., and that is very different way of thinking compared to most visual effects studios who are mostly think about versions, like version 1, version 2, or whatever, or just opening up a file. So what are your thoughts on that? Is how hard is that transition for you?
Well, actually, that's why what I'm saying is that's where I stopped my R&D. Well, that and the fact that visual effects work came in and kept me really busy. But basically, I was up to the point where my camera was syncing with the engine, so I could film with the Vive tracker. So I have everything going next
Got
door.
the same thing going on right here.
I know. Which is awesome. And the next step would be like a Rococo suit and have fun with that.
Yeah.
But you're right, and that's actually the point where you basically need to actually think about how you're going to do this because it's, again, you can have one scene, you can have 3 people working on it, so you can have like a plane with HDR sky, but then one guy adds, mountains in the back, and the other guys add the buildings, and so it's a total new way. But that's why I'm saying I really want to explore, because for a client, having all the sequencers and all your shots ready to be able to iterate like that, so you get, your
well,
shots
it's going to be much
quicker.
more like being on set, right? Because you're going to have like some guy lighting this and some guy doing this. And I mean, I think that's one of the ideas behind Omniverse as well, to think about what Omniverse is doing. So,
I saw a few tests. It's great.
Yeah. So I think it's the idea that what's the analogy I do? I like to think about real time. It's like, I want to be able to make the decision when I take my mouse button up, right? As opposed to version 1, version 2, like, no, there, perfect.
Yeah.
And then there is no version. It's just, you decided it right there.
No, exactly. But then, of course, being, the industry and the client reviews and stuff, it's still a thing. But again, it's getting all the studios to actually adopt that kind of real-time stuff, because I'm seeing cool stuff coming out of Blender now. I'm seeing, it comes down to who's behind the machine, then the pipeline to support the type of projects you're doing. So that's why having Unreal Engine and exploring how to work with that, because I have a way of thinking like, oh, well, you get your scene and then you start building and then you just save scene 1, scene 2. But how does it translate to the rest of the team? Because it's great when you work together. By yourself. But when you work with 20 people or a director or specific shots, then how do you get to version those? How do you roll back if, version 5 was better than 6,
Well, that's what Perforce is all for, but it's not we don't think that way.
No. Exactly.
Game designers think that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, is that getting game developers, that's what I'm hearing from other studios venturing into the Unreal platform, is that even them getting somebody from games with that particular thinking, working with VFX with the other thinking. So you need, again, I feel like the compositing lighting department, that's since I touch lighting, so I could talk to both. So that's why me trying Unreal Engine right now, I'm actually taking all the pieces and trying to bridge the gap between the two, because it's not the same thinking, and it's all based on your clients. If your clients are not looking for versioning, then you're good. If you have a very experienced director that's used to the old way, well, that pipeline needs to work all in one. So that's I'm looking forward to see what's going to be made, but I'm definitely going to start keep exploring that. Yes.
I think so. I think the other thing that I think is exciting for me, and I don't know if maybe I'm just being romantic about it, but directors, they used to, when they would shoot a big Marvel film or whatever, they'd sit in front of just miles of green screen or blue screen, right? And everything behind there, they had to imagine what it was going to look like in their head, and hopefully in 6 to 9 months they will see it. With real-time technology and virtual production stuff, that's not going to be the case anymore. They can say, oh, and even if it's not the final frame, they can look at it and go, let's do that. And so all those decisions on set can happen, and it's going to give it so much more information for the post-production process.
Well, just a test that I did by myself, it was basically me shooting a prop, like on Vimeo. I have it, and it's basically me with the green screen being shot, being rendered and keyed in real time in Unreal Engine, and then back onto my monitor, which I would see what I'm filming, and then the other was recording a green screen at the same time, but it's managing all of that information on a per take basis, and on the fact that, okay, version 8 was the good one. How do you process the cam? How do you get everything up to the other departments? So that's something that is going to be interesting. But you're right. Like, I've been watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which the sets are amazing. It's the first show that I really enjoyed, the Unreal virtual production, but you can actually see what's going on, and it's great. And I think the decision making being at the beginning is awesome. The fact that all the departments need to talk to each other is awesome, because before it was really post instead of being in the discussion at the beginning. Right. And I think even for smaller production, having access to, let's say, a smaller studio like ours, at one point we were discussing with a client to actually do the entire previs of a film. So then that person with a limited budget can actually take that film and go and get more financing, because you have something to show versus, again, 2 hours of green screen, which is really hard to sell to most people. Right. Even the banks, it's like, yeah, there's going to be a spaceship and this, and that costs $250,000. And then this other one, there's, it's hard. But with that kind of technology, I think it's going to open up and probably introduce a lot more new directors and creators out there. Yeah. So it's an exciting future, I think.
For sure. Well, this is very exciting. I appreciate you coming on and being able to share all the great stuff you guys are doing. So what we'll make sure to put your website up on our, I know you said it's still under construction. We'll put it up on the podcast page.
It's manageable. It's manageable.
but it's really cool. And, if I ever go to Montreal, I'm definitely going to come up to see you. I haven't started traveling that much since the pandemic, but at some point I'm going to start traveling again. So I'll definitely come to see you. But if you're ever in LA, please come by. Let me know.
Yes, I definitely will. Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on the show. It's really an honor for me, and like a real pleasure talking to you again. So it's feel like the old days.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great.